welcome to our Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education meeting. This beautiful April 10th, 2018 day, we actually start to feel like spring just a little bit. We will begin this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation. If you will all please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day and for the opportunities that you have given to each of us. Father, I ask you to bless this meeting, to bless our students that will be sharing with us this evening. Bless our students that we are going to recognize for their awesome talents and abilities. Lord, just let us, as we meet, Lord, let us just see you in each other's faces, hear you in others' voices. Help us, Lord, to proceed in this meeting with love, with grace, with peace, and with harmony in all that we do here tonight. In your name, amen. Amen. You may be seated. Board members, we have before us our agenda. I do not believe we have any changes to that agenda for this evening, so do I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Second, Mr. Johnson. All in favor? Wonderful. So yes, we have, it's our favorite part of the meeting, so we can have a chance to recognize all of our great students and teachers and the leaders in the district. So first, I would like to recognize our principal from Whitaker, and I think she's going to introduce one of her students. Thank you, Ms. Principal Creasy. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, board members, Dr. Emery, and guests. Each year at Whitaker, in 4th and 5th grade, students write and present a speech for the Modern Woodmen of America speech contest. Modern Woodmen is a national fraternal financial service organization. The contest is one of their youth education programs. Since 1948, Modern Woodmen of America has helped students to develop their clear thinking skills and public speaking. Over 100,000 students participate in the contest each year. Speeches are a minimum of 3 minutes with a maximum of 5 and must be in their own words. Students write, edit, practice, and then compete in their classrooms. Each class chooses 2 classmates to represent the school in a final competition. Their teachers support this writing and coach their presentations. This exercise provides the opportunities to teach and learn multiple ELA standards. Reading, writing, speaking, listening, language, touches lots of all of those. Each year, we're honored to have judges from the community. This year, our judges included Chairwoman Jones. Thank you for coming. The prompt this year was inventions that have improved the quality of life. Tonight, you will hear the winning speech from our 4th grader, Katie Cox. Let me recognize Katie's teacher, Master Teacher Bob Snyder, and our speech coordinator, our instructional facilitator, Bobby Stern. I'm very proud, as is her family, to invite Katie up to share her speech with you.
Before any of us were even born, a drug was discovered that changed the world. Millions of people have been able to live long and normal lives because of this discovery. For people with type 1 diabetes, the year 1921 is very important. That is the year that Frederick Banting discovered the hormone insulin. Dr. Banting was awarded the Nobel Prize for his discovery. Insulin is a very important drug to my own family. My brother Andrew got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when he was only 6 years old. He was in kindergarten at Whitaker. Because of insulin, Andrew has been able to live a happy, healthy, and active life. Everyone needs something called insulin to help the body use energy from the food we eat. Most people already have insulin inside their bodies. When kids have diabetes, they don't have any insulin inside their bodies. They have to get the insulin from a shot or an insulin pump instead. The reasons insulin is beyond any other invention is it allows people to live longer lives, eat a variety of food, and enjoy playing sports and exercising. Before insulin was discovered, people with diabetes did not live very long at all. There was not much doctors could do for them. Without insulin, our bodies can't get glucose into our cells. Glucose is the sugar that is broken down from the food we eat. Our bodies use glucose for energy. Without insulin, blood sugar levels get really high and people get very sick. Because of the discovery of insulin, people with diabetes are able to live long and normal lives. Insulin has also allowed people with diabetes to eat a variety of food. When you get home today, you might have a cookie. But if you had diabetes and no insulin, you couldn't eat any sugar at all. Before insulin was discovered, doctors couldn't do anything except for put people with diabetes on very strict diets. This might allow them to live a few more years. Many people on this type of diet died of starvation. Now, because of insulin, people with diabetes can eat anything. As long as they use their insulin correctly, they can eat my favorite foods like pizza, pancakes, and cereal. Finally, the discovery of insulin allowed people to enjoy playing sports and exercising. Before insulin, people with diabetes were very weak. Their bodies couldn't get the energy they needed to play tag or football. Kids had a hard time in school because they were too weak to concentrate and learn. Sometimes, my brother does not take enough insulin. When this happens, he has a hard time thinking clearly and he can't focus. Thankfully, because of insulin, Andrew does great in school. He is now a senior in high school and he's going to UNC next year. Insulin has kept millions of people alive and has given hope to millions of families, including mine. When you get diagnosed with diabetes, it is very scary. Because of the discovery of insulin, people now have hope for many reasons. First of all, they know they can live a long and normal life like any other human being. Insulin also gives people the choice of enjoying a lot of different food. Finally, insulin allows people living with diabetes to live healthy lives. Without a doubt, insulin has improved my life more than any other invention, because it means I get to have my brother around for a very long time.
That might even been better than the first time, right? So, thank you, Katie, for coming and sharing your speech and talking to us a little bit about your family, right? So you kind of shared some personal things. So I'm going to practice, and so when I can give a speech, and maybe one day I can do it as well as you just did right there. So you're awesome. Thank you very much. And I think our board members want to take your hands and give this walk right around you. So, Katie's, we heard from our principal, but I think we talked about some teachers and staff members and family members. Will you stand up as well? We'd like to recognize you. Thank you. This time I'll like to recognize our district athletic director, Mr. John Sullivan. I'm looking in the back.
Chairman Jones, members of the board, thank you for inviting us here tonight. We're excited to be here to recognize our 2017-2018 North Carolina High School Athletic Association Winter Sports State Champions. Represented here tonight, we have 5 schools, 29 athletes, 9 coaches, 11 individual champions, and 1 team champion to be honored. This assembly of champions consists of 9 seniors, 12 juniors, 1 sophomore, and 5 freshmen. The future is bright. Their coaches have prepared them well to perform at the highest level, and these athletes have responded. I would like to thank all of our coaches for their hard work and dedication and time and effort they put in working with our athletes to get them to this level. So let's begin with our 4A state swimming champion from West Forsyth, Tucker Burhans. Tucker won state championships in 2 events, the 100 freestyle and 100 backstroke.
You gonna tell where he's headed?
Miss Clark just wants to say Chapel Hill.
Next, if we could have our 3A state champions, all of them come across. These are our 3A state champs in track and field. From Mount Tabor High School, Charnessa Reed, girls 55 meter. Hold on, we'll do them all at the same time here. From Mount Tabor, Brandon Cornell, boys shot put, wheelchair. Brandon is unable to attend this evening. From Mount Tabor High School, Cameron Ponder, boys 1,600 and 1,000 meters. Cameron. From IB Parkland, Dalnique Penn, girls 55 meters. From IB Parkland, the girls 4x200 medley relay, Shamara Tolliver, Diamond Lyerly, Delnique Penn, and Alexis Patterson. And Mount Tabor, boys head coach is Patrick Cromwell, and the girls head coach is Mike Riley. And from Parkland, the head coach is Antoine Hughes. Congratulations to our 3A state champions. Next, we will recognize our 4A track and field state champions. From Reagan High School, in the 4A girls 1,000 meters and 1,600 meters, unable to attend tonight is Sophie Faircloth. In the girls 4x800 meter relay, Sophie Faircloth, Ansley Cooper, Gwen Parks, and Samantha Troop. Congratulations. They are coached by Eric Fritz. Thank you. Congratulations, girls. And now we will recognize our 1A, 5-time state champ, Winston-Salem Prep. Coach Chad Hicks is going to introduce the team.
Good afternoon. All right, as we can start here first, Zachary Austin, just raise your hands. Nathan Cartwright. Darius Everett. Chaz Gwynn. Justice Goodlow. Zaire Patterson, Joshua Robertson, Corey Rutherford, Anthony Sellers, Keith Watson, Davian Williamson, and Coach John Hopper.
What talent we have in our district. Yes, I see our principal. How are you doing? We did not recognize you. Principal of Winston-Salem Prep, thank you very much for being with us this evening. So 5-time champions, pretty impressive. Awesome. Thank you. That concludes, no, we have several other special recognitions. I just need to flip the page. So next I'd like to recognize Dr. Amy Nail.
Good evening. Autism is a developmental disorder typically diagnosed during the first 3 years of life. The Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools employ qualified and caring individuals who educate and work daily to improve the lives of students with autism. April is designated as National Autism Awareness Month to increase public awareness of the need to support individuals and the family members, educators, and other professionals who teach and care for individuals with autism. You will have an opportunity later in the meeting to consider approving a resolution to support April as National Autism Awareness Month. Will Rasmussen is a 6th grade student at Paisley IB Magnet School and has a passion for advocating for individuals with autism. Tonight he would like to share his story and some information with you. It is my distinct honor to introduce Will Rasmussen.
First, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. My name is Will Rasmussen, and I attend Paisley IB Magnet School, but you already know that from the introduction. Beth Dodson made it possible for me to talk to you today. Miss Dodson was my speech pathologist at Southwest Elementary. She did not help me with my speech as much as how to interact with others. I really appreciated her help through elementary school. She even continued to help me through the first half of 6th grade. Autism. What is autism? Autism is a difference in how someone thinks and learns. You're born with it, you cannot catch it. Autism never goes away, and it's also something that varies from person to person. Autism is a spectrum ranging from high-functioning autism, like I have, to severe autism, which can be debilitating. 1 in 42 boys and 1 in 190 girls are diagnosed on the autism spectrum. Autism is a difference in the brain that can cause lack of focus, and it may seem like people with autism are intentionally being unhelpful, but it's not their fault. In my case, I was not diagnosed with autism until 3rd grade, which is when I was expected to start socializing with other kids. But I was often found alone on the playground. I just didn't know how to interact with others. How does autism impact me? Autism makes it so that I do not understand what people are thinking and what they want me to do, unless they tell me directly. At school, it makes it so that I have very few friends, and some people really don't like me. I think this is because I do not know when to stop talking about an issue or topic. They may also not like me because I say something that can be interpreted as rude when I'm just stating the facts. Autism affects my ability to organize and remember to turn in my assignments. How can teachers and students help me? Teachers can help me by being patient and gently reminding me to complete and turn in my assignments. Teachers could also help with my social interactions by becoming more informed about autism and its effects on kids. My classmates can help me by being understanding of the fact that I might need them to directly tell me what they want me to do, instead of just giving me social cues that I don't understand. Kids with autism can do everything other kids can do at school with the right support. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you tonight, and I hope you take into consideration what I've said.
So thank you. You did an amazing job. Thank you so much. I think you're pretty terrific. And thanks for coming and sharing with us ways that just giving us some more information and helping us understand autism better and from your perspective as a student. And so that's really important. I think Will's mom and dad are here with us. Mom's with us, so thank you, Dad. Are any of Will's teachers or anyone from the school? Yes. Thank you for being with us. So on behalf of the board, Will, we're going to give you this certificate. Thank you very much. And I think maybe if you want to walk around, all the board members may want to say hello.
Thank you so much.
So next I'll recognize Jennifer Cobb with the Winston-Salem Chamber of Commerce to recognize some of our spectacular school volunteers.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you all, Chairperson Jones and board members, Dr. Emery. Appreciate being able to be here and share some outstanding volunteers with you and just acknowledge their contributions this school year. And I'll share with everyone here, just so you'll know, each April, to help coincide with National Volunteer Week, we try to recognize our volunteers. The board is going to be sharing a resolution in a moment just to recognize the work that is going on school year wide with volunteers across our district. But one of the things that we also like to do is just recognize a couple of our really shining stars who are outstanding volunteers. So I'm happy that we're able to introduce to you some really outstanding folks who are contributing a lot this year to our school. But I also wanted to just mention, because I think it's interesting, the fact that if you just look at last year as a snapshot of the amount of hours that volunteers across our district contributed, if you placed a value on that monetarily, it would be in the range of about $7.2 million, a little over $7.2 million. So that is a lot of support and invaluable and really immeasurable support that volunteers give to our district. So I just wanted to mention that. This is also the time of year that schools try to have that difficult task of selecting who is really the shining stars out of their school. And so our PTA, volunteer coordinators, our volunteer faculty advisors, our administrators, teachers all come together collectively just to kind of look at who's been really going above and beyond. And so that's what we're hoping to do tonight, and just sharing a couple of faces with you and some outstanding folks. So what I'd like to do is, before our administrators and our outstanding volunteers who you're going to get to meet tonight come forward, I want to also share with you on behalf of the Kingswood School a volunteer who's been very special this year who couldn't be with us tonight. So I talked to her earlier today, and I told Jessica that she'll be here in spirit, but I want to just share some things that the Kingswood School shared with me specifically about her. So Jessica Dalton is one of Kingswood School's outstanding volunteers this year. And Jessica, along with New Story Church, have been providing some wonderful outreach in terms of helping improve the school, do some work around the school. They were inspirational in helping to paint the school's cafeteria. They provided treats to the staff, to students, and have encouraged, as much as anything, a welcoming atmosphere anytime they're there on site at the school. Students at the school have dealt with trauma and abuse, sometimes neglect, and sometimes generational poverty. So having a group such as this along with Ms. Dalton has been so valuable for the school and the students there. And their compassion and generosity has been contagious. Now this is something that Bianca Brown, who is the instructional facilitator at Kingswood, shared with me. She's also the volunteer faculty advisor at the school. So she really just wanted to help everyone know what a special person Miss Dalton is. And she said that our students in Kingswood have never smiled as big as the times that Miss Dalton and New Story Church has been at the school, just to help provide some extra things that they've really benefited from. So I just wanted to share that with you. And now I'd like to ask if Ms. McCrimmon and Ms. Gilmer might come forward with your outstanding volunteers, and I'm going to let them share a few things about the work that they have also been doing this year at their schools.
Good evening, board and guests. I'm Sandra Gilmer, the principal at Special Children's School. John Cortez is a true blessing at Special Children's School. He came to us as the grandfather of a pre-K child, and he's remained with us as our friend and supporter for several years, even after his grandchild moved on to kindergarten. John always enters our school with a cheerful voice and an eagerness to make a difference every day. John has been coming to our school every week for several years to read to our children. He enjoys it so much he's added several other schools in our district to his list as well. There's no end to the many ways John has supported and enhanced our program at the Special Children's School. He's always asked for no thanks and no recognition for his work. Well, that's about to change. Some of the things that John does that he doesn't want people to know are: he provides backpacks for all our children with school supplies throughout the year. He surprises classes with pizzas and cupcakes. He buys and gives stuffed animals to every child at Christmas. He donates food to our staff events. He helps prepare handbooks and other materials in the summer. He buys food from our fundraisers and then gives them to families in need. And he adopts children for Christmas. And the list goes on and on and on. John is a volunteer you never have to ask to help. He volunteers when you first see him, just saying, "What do you need? How can I help?" Or he catches me in the hall and he says, "Hey, Miss Gilmer, I had this idea." So he's always thinking, he's always trying to figure out how to make our program better. John has a heart of gold, and he embodies the volunteer spirit. We are just so fortunate to benefit from his work and his service at our school. So thank you, John.
Well, John, you have to come up here. Please. I know we've got, but we're going to come.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Rashonda McCrimmon, and I'm one of the assistant principals at Paisley IB Magnet School. I'm here to introduce our wonderful volunteer, Mrs. Linda Gautier. I first had the pleasure of meeting Ms. Gautier when I taught her two girls, Rachel and Emma, in 7th grade at Paisley. So now I'm their administrator when I was their teacher, and she has just been a phenomenal asset to our school. She works tirelessly with our PTA. She's there several days a week. I actually think we probably need to give her a badge and just hire her, but she's there several days a week giving school tours. She's willing to go to different magnet fairs that we have to talk to parents, to get them to bring their kids over to Paisley. She's such an advocate for our IB program and our teachers and our students there. She worked tirelessly this past fall on the iFest committee. International Festival is one of our annual events, and she pulled it off without a hitch, and it was great. She's just always there when you need her. She never tells us no. She's always going above and beyond the call of duty. And again, she has the heart of volunteerism. She has a heart of gold. And we just love her at Paisley. It's her girls' last year, so we're going to miss her. But we hope she comes back and volunteers from time to time. But, but please, I would like for you to give her a warm applause. Our volunteer, Miss Linda Gautier.
And maybe we'll talk to principal and see if we can. At least, if you only have one more year, surely we could swing a parking space. Thank you so much. And thank you, Jennifer, for what you do for our schools. We appreciate you. Next, I'll recognize Jackie Pearson.
Good evening. Being a school librarian is the best job in the whole wide world. And I'm slightly biased, but it gives me a great opportunity to work with the best people in the whole world. We're teachers, we're readers, we're leaders, we're administrators, we're hall duty people. We've just got our fingers in every piece of the school, and the school library is the hub both of instruction and of activity and outreach into the parents and the community. This year, the National Professional Association, American Association of School Librarians, really reached out and did a big promo about April being a School Library Media Month, and it is also School Library Month for public libraries and college libraries and all the library professions. And this year, our state association, professional association, and our state superintendent did a proclamation that April is School Library Media Month that also went on to our governor of North Carolina. So I thought it was appropriate that you all also are recognizing our school librarians, and many of the principals in the district have special treats or special greetings for their librarians. And I have with me two of our outstanding, distinguished media coordinators in our district. Crystal Joyce, who is at the media coordinator at Old Richmond, is the state advocacy chair for school librarians, and she was actually at the State Board of Education meeting presenting this proclamation to Mark Johnson. And Bitsy Griffin is the media coordinator at Old Town Elementary, and she is the president-elect of the North Carolina School Library Media Association and has done advocacy work in Washington, D.C., as well as Crystal, I think, is heading there on National Library Day in May. So thank you for recognizing the important role and the exciting role that school librarians play in our district, and it truly is the best job in the whole world.
So again, thank you for what you do every day. Thank you for advocating, and not only the work you're doing in the district, but what you're doing in the state and what you're doing at the national level. So thank you for what you do. And Jackie, thank you as well. You wear a lot of hats, and on meeting nights you get things working for us, and we appreciate that. So yes, and so we have certificates for you, and also I know that the board wants to shake your hand as well. Okay, so I'll give Jackie. Crystal. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us this evening. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I do love my job. That's a good thing. I love my job.
So that concludes our special recognitions this evening, and we will move next into public comments on agenda items. I have one speaker signed up, Ms. Rhonda Mays.
Good evening, Chairwoman Jones, the board, and Dr. Emery. I'm Rhonda Mays. I'm a school social worker in the district and full-time release president of Forsyth County Association of Educators. Tonight, I would like to address the teacher contract policy. First of all, I want to thank you as a board for dedicating and being dedicated to making the offer of a 4-year contract a priority, not putting a lot of emphasis on the 1-year contract. Because you understand that when people and educators have an opportunity and they're able to be vested in where they are, it makes them feel appreciated and they will stay in the district. And I want to thank you for also reaching out to the educators who are defined under teacher. Because a lot of people don't understand that even though they see teacher, teacher does not only include a classroom teacher. It includes your student services people, such as your school social workers, your school psychologists, your school counselors, and so on and so forth, in some other areas of certified educators in our district. So we thank you for reaching out by way of a survey that you were able to get opinions from all of us from a select few of us who fall under that teacher definition, as well as administrators. So that is very important as well, that you're not just making these decisions in isolation. We thank you also for accepting the feedback from members of Forsyth County Association of Educators in making this decision. Thank you for allowing for public comment or feedback on the contract. What I would ask, though, is that all of us who are under the teacher category be sent the actual contract as it is here, so therefore they would have it in its full form so they can be able to comment on it from there. So, and also more guidelines on how people can make comments and suggestions on what's being presented as well. But thank you for your commitment to making this district the best district we can be in North Carolina, and we're going to continue to be supportive of the things that you are doing for our students as well as for the educators in this district. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public comments on agenda items. We have 3 items for discussion this evening. Perfect segue into teacher contracts. I will recognize Ms. Jenkins.
Jackie, is there PowerPoint loaded?
One moment, please.
You need a PowerPoint, Dion? You know you have all that in your, right here.
It would help.
Can you just connect to my iPad and link in? It's
We all have, I mean, because we all have it.
I mean, just so the public can see it.
public can
Do
see
you
what
want to
you're-
try to do that?
Is there a way to do that?
It may not have the adapter.
I mean, can you not connect to mine?
Give me just 1 minute and let me try
I'm going
this.
to need to link in too. I don't have a paper copy.
Does Mr. Johnson, hold on, I think we may have Mr. Johnson has a paper copy?
We've got it. We have it.
Awesome.
I've got it here. Oh, here we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Well, good evening, Chairwoman Jones, board members, and Dr. Emery. Tonight, I'm going to provide you a brief overview of the proposed new teacher contract policy. Later on in your agenda, we will ask for you to approve the first reading of the policy. I do want to be clear and clarify for those of you who are here, as well as for those who may be watching, that this is not the final version of the policy. This is a first reading. It is still very much in draft form. And so
If the board approves the first reading of this policy tonight, it will go out for public comment. So there still will be a period of time where people can submit comments to me and their feedback on the policy. And the hope is that we will have a final version of the policy by the end of this month. So I do want to clarify that for members of the public and for those of you who are watching who have questions about that. So tonight I'm going to cover just four really quick topics. I'm going to give a background about the statutory requirement for this policy. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our data collection process that Ms. Mays alluded to, an overview of the terms of the policy, as well as our next steps. So many of you recall in 2013, our General Assembly made several changes to the statutes as it pertains to the administration of teacher contracts. Probably the biggest piece that sticks out to that is that they took away tenure for teachers who had not yet attained career status. But teachers who had attained career status up to that point have kept it and will keep it unless and until something changes. So this proposed contract policy that I'm going to talk about today applies to those teachers who do not have career status. And so beginning in July of 2018, so from the 2018-19 school year and forward, the board has the decision to make as far as what length of contracts will be issued for teachers. And as Ms. Mays alluded to, this applies to teachers as far as classroom teachers, but also other individuals who are paid as a teacher and people who are considered as instructional support personnel according to the state. And it also applies to those folks who are working in a full-time permanent position only. So the statute gives some guidance, but it's they leave a lot of leeway up to the boards as far as how they're going to decide who gets what length of contract. The guidance that the statute does provide states that if you are a teacher and you have been employed by the board for less than 3 years, you shall receive a one-year contract. So there's no leeway on that regard. However, if you have been employed by the board for more than 3 years and you have demonstrated proficiency pursuant to the evaluation instrument, you may be issued a 1, 2, or 4-year contract. And so that is, in a nutshell, the guidelines that the statute provides. So they're leaving it up to the district to fill in the rest of the criteria for how they're going to issue those contracts. And again, I think I've already mentioned this, but this policy applies to those who meet the statutory definition of a teacher. So those folks who have a professional educator's license, an entry teacher's license, a regular vocational license, and those who are classified or paid by the state as a teacher and are employed in a full-time permanent position. So I want to tell you a little bit about the data collection process that we used in developing this proposed policy. There was a committee of staff members, including myself, Dr. Emery, Alex Hoskins, Matt Dixon, and Brenda Bourne, who surveyed a random sampling of our teacher body here at the school system. They sampled 1,000 teachers, which is roughly a third of our teachers, as well as all of the principals. And we received a total of 514 responses. And we used the feedback from those responses to kind of formulate the criteria that we are establishing for multi-year contracts. So I mentioned earlier that this only applies to teachers who do not have career status. I just wanted to let you know, for a little bit of statistical information here, currently about 44% of our teachers are on a career contract. And so this policy, whenever it's finalized, will impact about 56% of our teaching staff. So the policy that you have before you is a policy that grants a 1 or a 4-year contract option. We are recommending bypassing the 2-year contract option, which is pretty consistent with how many of the other districts in the state are handling it. A lot of them are doing 1 and 4-year contracts. There are some that are doing 2, but we are recommending a 1 and 4-year contract option. And so the policy begins by just going through some key definitions that are important for this policy. Obviously, it defines who a teacher is. It defines what a year means, because there is a year component here to this policy. And the year statutorily means July 1 to June 30th. However, Oftentimes, there are teachers that are hired after the start of the new year, and so if a teacher's been employed as of September 1st, they will be considered as having worked that full year. And then finally, it defines good standing. And good standing is being recommended as a prerequisite to receiving a 4-year contract as basically a floor or a foundation as far as teacher performance and expectations. And so in order to be considered in good standing, you had to have been at least proficient on all standards on your evaluation. Not currently or within the most recent year on any sort of performance plan, so not on a monitored, directed, or mandatory improvement plan. And you had not received any disciplinary actions such as a suspension without pay, demotion, or a written reprimand within the most current school year prior to the recommendation. The policy goes on to just otherwise establish some basic teacher performance expectations. This is where we want to reiterate our core value of high expectations for the district, for all teachers in the district, as well as the expectation for those who are in an evaluator role to evaluate teachers pursuant to our evaluation policies. And so that means obviously noting the teachers who need areas for improvement, their competencies, all in accordance with the standards that are on the evaluation instrument. And it's this information, this evaluation and other information that's gathered throughout this process that the superintendent will use in support of her recommendations for contract terms. Okay, so the next part of the policy deals with probably what everybody wants to know, is how do we determine the contract length that will be offered for teachers. So the 1-year contract option is fairly easy. It's either a teacher who's been employed for less than 3 consecutive years as a teacher in the district, or a teacher who does not otherwise meet the criteria for a 4-year contract. So that's fairly simple. For the 4-year contract option, it has to be a teacher who is currently in good standing, a teacher who has been employed with the district as a teacher for at least 4 consecutive years, a teacher who has received a rating of accomplished on standards 1 and 4, which are the standards that pertain to teacher leadership and teacher effectiveness, and has either met or exceeded growth as reflected on their individual teacher evals. And we are using a 3-year average, and not just 1 year or 2 years, because it's been our experience as we've looked at evals for other measures that that's the fairest way to do it. So that there's some years the teachers may have a great year and some they're just an average year. So we're using a 3-year average as far as whether or not the teacher has met or exceeded growth. And that's the reason for the 4-year requirement, because EVAS does not come out until the following school year. So you have to have worked at least 4 years to have a 3-year EVAS average. And so the policy just ends up by saying essentially that the superintendent's ability to recommend dismissal or demotion or other disciplinary action for cause remains unchanged, and that the board will continue to follow the statutory procedure for non-renewal of teachers who are in a renewal year. So what are our next steps? If the board approves this first reading of the policy tonight, it will go out for public comment, and it will stay out for public comment for at least 7 days. And then the next policy committee is April the 24th. If there are no substantial changes from comments or feedback between now and then, our goal is to bring the final version of this policy back to you on the 24th for your final approval. So again, just to reiterate, for the benefit of the public, if the board approves this first reading tonight, they're essentially just approving for it to go out to public comment, and are not approving a final version or wording in this policy. So there is still a possibility that the language of the policy may change. But and when that happens, we will move forward with our non-renewal practice as we normally do, and those notifications will go out in June. So I know that was a very quick overview, but are there any questions or comments?
Could I add one thing before we do that? I do want to make note, and to Rhonda's point, and as those folks who are helping us with feedback, I want to be really clear that about 77% of our teachers have an EVAS score. But we do have teachers that do not, and there will be opportunity to demonstrate growth. And we could use some suggestions for how we could do that, what those options might be. Some of our teachers have experience with what's called analysis of student work. So if you were an art or a music or a PE teacher or foreign language where you were creating a portfolio or gathering evidence of your student growth. So what I don't want is anyone to think that you are not an eligible candidate for this 4-year contract if you don't have a 3-year EVOS report. If you have served in any capacity as a teacher, and we've had a lot of conversation around what that would look like and how we might do it. We also know some districts are managing that by saying a teacher must meet 4 out of 5 of the criteria or 3 out of 4 of the criteria if we can't find a definition for the growth factor, which I think we can. And I also, I kind of like the idea of a teacher that doesn't have an EVOS score being able to work out with their principal an individual plan. There's not a band director on the planet that can't show growth from the first week of school to the concert, you know. And so is there some way to be creative with the growth piece there? So I just wanted to put it out there that this doesn't render folks who don't have an EVOS score ineligible for a 4-year contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, comments or questions?
Just remind.
I think, go ahead, Laura.
Just the process for public comment, if you're out there and you want to leave a public comment,
Yes.
remind us.
Great question. So it will be posted on our district website under the policies page, and there will be a link to send me an email directly from there if you'd like to submit public comments, as well as my contact information if you'd like to call. And if you don't have, email access or internet capabilities in order to send me an email, there will be my telephone information there as well.
Ms. Calvert-Hayes.
I just want to thank you for bringing this to the board. We have excellent teachers, hardworking teachers in our area, and I am so glad to see this come before us. We need to be able to retain our teachers. And in retaining our teachers, we need to let them know how much they are appreciated. In Forsyth County, we also need to be able to do everything we can to help up their pay. I'm just delighted, and needless to say, this makes me very, very happy as a board member. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
I guess I'm concerned about the 9 failing schools that we have. I realize that teachers go to work every day trying to upgrade students that have very little chances of progressing. And we got all those kids lumped together like that. I just don't see how a teacher's going to be successful in that situation they are in. There was a time that we pulled out a lot of kids that couldn't do well and placed them together. We got 3 types of kids in this school here that are special. HAG, AG, and the program at Paisley down there, IB. Now those are special kids. All of those kids are in those programs because they have similar abilities and they do well. But you know, when you lump me with kids in the 3rd grade, that some of those kids, and I've been at Forest Park to tutor some of those kids, they cannot tell you 10 cents for 10 pennies. That's just how weak some of those kids are. So they need a lot of help. And I just don't believe that you need to keep the average kid that is in that setup with those kids. We need to find another section of kids to pull out so we can spend more time with the kid that needs that extra help. And I see that those teachers that are in a setup like we got them now, they're going to be your failing teachers. They are not going to be able to progress too much. And if I were teaching that situation with a 1-year contract, I'd be finding myself another job.
Ms. Taylor.
To Mr. Johnson's point, that's one of the things that I discussed as well. What do we do about the teachers who are, the students are growing, but they're just not meeting that growth on their EVAs? Doesn't that kind of put them in a position of never really catching them, getting the 4-year contract? I prefer the idea of the 3 out of 4. There's 4 requirements. Like Mr. Johnson said, the teachers who are in classes that have students with lower test scores, it'll be hard for them to get a 4-year contract based off what we're seeing in front of us. How would we kind of even that playing field? It's easier for a teacher with an HAG class to get, you know, the grades or be able to get to exceed growth or meet growth. What about the teachers who are in classes with lower performing students? Yes, we're looking at the next 3 years, but how would we help them to be able to get the 4-year contract? Because right here it looks like they would not be able to unless we say 3 out of 4. How would we address that as a board?
Dr. Emery.
So EVOS is based strictly on growth. It is not based on a proficiency score. So it really is an equalizing factor across the district. Both of these comments are accurate. Kids come into some of our schools with much greater challenges than others. I don't see any impediment here based on your school. I mean, 9 of our 15 Inspire 340 schools met or exceeded growth last year compared to 5 the year before.
Correct.
Teachers, if we look at individual teacher growth, the spread across the district isn't broken out by, you wouldn't be able to pick it out based on schools. So maybe that's some data, if it makes you all more comfortable, we could pull teacher growth data and you could actually look at that spread across the district, because if my kids are at 20% proficient and I grow them, even if that proficiency number doesn't look that good, I can still exceed growth.
Right.
Just like the teacher whose kids are at 80. So
Right, and I understand that, but I guess my concern is for the teachers who are in classes. Let's say we're not talking about lower performing students. Let's say a class that have students with behavior problems and she's spending most of her time trying to manage the classroom. You know, it still puts that extra burden on her to still try to grow her students and still control classroom management. You know, I just want to look at all aspects before I make a decision. You know, I want to make it fair. I want as many teachers as possible to have the opportunity to get a 4-year contract. And if I see something that can possibly, you know, allow them not to get that 4-year, we need to find other ways that they can also get that 4-year contract. Because just because you don't meet or exceed growth in EVAS does not make you a teacher that can't perform or a great teacher. I don't agree with that.
I agree. And I would encourage us to also remember that the 3-year averaging helps with some of that too. So you're exactly right. There could be issues. One of the things I was really proud of today in the principals meeting when they saw this, the principals themselves talked about the need to continually train on norming and inter-rater reliability because 2 of these factors are related to the evaluation instrument. And so real recognition and acknowledgement in the room that we need to be as consistent and fair in what the ratings are, and we need to sort of constantly have built-in training for that so that we don't, because that's subjective too.
It's very subjective.
And you know, while we want to focus to be on teacher leader and effectiveness, I think we have them in the right standards, but it's our job to make sure that people have some way of sort of norming that's consistent and fair. And you know, when we added our instructional superintendents and they're evaluating all the principals in the district, we brought someone in who actually sat down with them not only at the end but mid-year, and they actually went through those factors and said, what is proficient, what is accomplished, what are those things that we're looking for, and so I think that's really going to be important for us too. So I hear what you're saying, and I think that's, I mean, your phrase is one that I think we need to really put out there, which is our goal is to make sure as many people can reach this as possible. and to make it a desirable thing for folks to work towards when they come in and with 1 year, right? I'm working towards that 4-year.
And it's hard to retain teachers if they're afraid I'm going to get a year-to-year contract, a 1-year contract, because they're not meeting the growth, you know, whatever it is.
So I think Ms. Parker wants to make a comment. And Dr. Emery, will you make sure that that the board receives that data that you were talking about?
Yes,
that would be
very helpful.
Very helpful for us to have that. Sure. Thank you. Ms. Parker.
And I'll just say, my first blush at this was the same as yours, Ms. Taylor. I thought, oh, I don't like this, but then I began to think, the classroom that I volunteer and have for years at Cook has lots of challenges in almost every way. And that the teacher that in the classroom that I volunteer in has been in the green every single year. And so that when I thought about that, it made me feel better about what's happening in the classrooms with teachers and
oh, yeah,
that.
It can happen.
Yeah, it does, and that. But I think it'll be beneficial to see that that data and go from there.
That would be great. Good point. Other comments?
Yeah, I just want to say, Ms. Taylor, I did think about, well, I'm glad you brought that point up because I knew there was something that was missing in this. And when you do have those variables as, you know, behavior, that can impede the growth. So I think we do need to look at a district, all of those variables that we're not looking at right now. Because all of us that have taught school, you know, you could be an excellent teacher, but if you happen to get a class, 4th period or 5th period class with a lot of behavior issues, you know, that's going to affect that growth. So,
If I could, Mr. Dixon just rescued me. I just for your and I'll send you the 3-year. This is just last year. Last year we had 1,465 teachers that met or exceeded growth, and 194 that did not. That's a 1-year snapshot, and of course, in those that did not, they might be able to add 2 years. And that's just the EVOS data. That's not all the other, but that kind of gives you some perspective of where our teachers were just in the.
And that was just 1 year.
That's just 1 year.
We're speaking of averaging.
And we'll get you the
those
3-year
for 3
averaging.
years. Right.
But since he was so quick to send it to me, I thought I'd go ahead and.
Thank you, Mr.
Share
Dixon.
it with you.
Other comments or I think we've spent a good amount of time earlier today talking about budgets and dollars, and so I would just say that I would like to, with the 4-year contract, also put additional compensation with that. I think that would be important as well, or it's important to me if we can do that, and not only for the 4-year contracts, but for career status teachers who meet these requirements, for them to also have that additional compensation. So I know we're in the budget process and trying to think about that, but if we could put our minds around what that might look like as well. Other questions, feedback, comments? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dion. So next I will recognize Dr. Emery. We had a retreat not long ago, and I think she's going to summarize and share some things that came out of that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be brief because I know we did discuss some of these pieces that have made their way into the budget, but I did just want to do a quick overview. I appreciate the board spending a good 4 hours on an area that's important to all of us, which is what could we be doing as a district to better support behavior issues in the classroom and to support our teachers in managing them. You all know for those of you who didn't attend, we invited several groups of folks in to have conversation. We looked at our data. We brought in our lead school psychologist. We brought in our lead behavior person for the district, lead social worker for the district, and lead counselor for the district. And so our sort of first conversation was around these people with expertise in their fields and what did they think were things that we could improve upon, and we had some very good suggestions in dialogue. And then we actually did sort of some reverse design we looked at data and were able to see what were those schools in the district that over time had had a decrease or a notable decrease in discipline referrals, and then asked those folks to come in and really have some conversation with us about what are they doing, what strategies have they employed. And so we had principal, AP, we had several teachers, and it was very, very powerful Saturday morning, I think. And so what you have here are sort of the collection of notes that we put together at the end of that that indicates some short-term and long-term strategy. And I'm just going to go through them briefly and then answer questions you may have. What you know has already made it to the budget is the addition of 2 school psychologists for next school year. And if you look, I tried to outline there part of that purpose. One of the requests that was talked about here when we talked about school safety was that while we look at entrances and securing buildings, that we not lose sight of the mental health pieces that go with that, and create a task force to really look at what are we doing as a district, what strategies, and how do we continue to support that. So part of the work of an additional school psychologist would be to lead this behavioral support task force, which would incorporate those areas that I mentioned earlier, guidance, social work, school counseling, and school psychology. And you all know we talked about several of these things. What are the current supports that we have that are working? How do we make sure that we support that across the district in a more systemic way? One of the other suggestions that we all really liked was what are the norms, the district norms for in-school suspension? Where is it working well? Where is it effective? One of the comments that teachers shared with us is that in-school suspension shouldn't be a place kids like to go and get to put their headphones on and play. It should be a place that is an instructional environment and gets them prepared to go back to class. We have a percentage of our schools that are PBIS, and we support the PBIS mindset, but in order to get other schools there, there's a 5-day training requirement. And that's a big chunk of time that's hard to find. And so some of this work is around how can we create some pathways for students who've been in an elementary school and go on to middle and high school that sort of mirror those PBIS expectations without that huge, how do you find 5 days for literally hundreds of teachers at West Forsyth to go through the training? So is there some other alternative that we can use to be more consistent as adults about discipline? And then the fourth one, you'll see I put that out a little longer, which is can we look at interventions in other urban districts around the country that have been successful? And I think we have some of that. Actually went back after we did this and looked at 2 of our Broad studies, one in turnaround schools and the other on elementary literacy. And there are actually some intervention behavioral strategies. And you all remember when we did those studies, we looked at high-performing urban districts across the country. And so we actually already have some of this, I think, that could be used by this group. The other purpose in increasing our school psychologists would be the mental health first aid. You've seen some good coverage of that lately. Since the most recent school tragedy, we've had a huge interest from across the district. It really is a way for everyone who might work with kids to sort of not become a school psychologist, but to create some ability to assess and then make referrals of children who need additional support. And I think there's been great interest because we all kind of feel like we may not, if we're not trained, we might not adequately have that background. There is a cost for that. In the district right now, we have 3 people that we invested some significant dollars to get them trained as trainers. They can teach this class. So we'd also like to add get an additional person trained. The Department of Public Instruction no longer pays for the materials, so we also will build in costs for the materials, but it's a really low cost of investment for what the We also had really great discussion about some of the things for kids that happen that feel like behavior issues for kids are actually adult organization and management issues, and how can we better support people starting the school year. And so we relied back on the irreplaceables research and a lot of the training we've done in the district to look at building more folks within our teacher academy, and you also saw that in your budget tonight. So we will go from 40 to 75 next year and use those teacher leaders. For those of you who don't know, these are identified leaders in the classroom. They don't have to leave the classroom to become a teacher leader, and they're compensated to do things like mentor other teachers or create model classrooms where teachers can come visit and then have dialogue with them. We're finishing year 1 of that program. We found it to be very successful. Are there ways we can use the academy to help beginning teachers or teachers who are struggling with things like classroom management and lesson planning? We also talked about identifying these master or irreplaceable teachers. One of our ideas, because teachers told us the most important thing was getting started well, and that sometimes a highly experienced or knowledgeable person could come in and do an hour visit with you when you're setting up your classroom, particularly if you're new, and help you, give you some tips about how to get started and get organized. So this recommendation is to identify 20 to 25 of our strong teachers with management, pay them for 2 additional days at the beginning of the school year so that they can get their own room set up, but then be free when the regular teaching force comes to work to really get out and maybe target beginning teachers. So visits in classrooms with beginning teachers to really kind of help give them some feedback on how to get set up and get started. Our teacher induction group, and several are in the room, are also looking at Wong's First Days of School. We have 4 books that I just got, folks. They did come today. We're studying 4 books that we want to actually give folks when they sign a contract with us. So before they come in August, as soon as you sign a contract, this is what we want you to focus on, read this summer, be prepared. So it sort of sets a tone for how to get structured and organized and get off to a good start. And so that kind of connects, and it's not here, but I wanted to share that. And then finally, we really talked about low-hanging fruit, which is how can we just create emphasis on things that could have an effect. And sometimes things are very simple. To me, it was powerful to hear Angela Hubbard say, you know, one of the things you could do is just make sure guidance counselors don't have lunch duty. Because one of the times kids can come and seek out a counselor is during lunch. And so we always think we have to have somebody in the cafeteria so I put this ASAP because if you bless it and tell me I'm going tomorrow and send something out and say, as quickly as you can figure out your coverage, we don't need to wait till next year to do that. This is a strategy that I think makes sense. And then Ms. Clark reminded me that B is part of our policy. We already have a policy that says that we don't use recess or lunch as discipline, but I don't think that we're as true to that as we need to be, and so I think some reinforcement that it is a mental health thing, that I need to be able to talk to my friends at lunch and go outside and play and release some stress. And so these are 2 simple, quick things we think we can do right away, and they're not going to fix everything, but I mean, that's kind of what we were looking for, or what are some tangible things that as a district we can reinforce. So I think saying to schools, we don't want our counselors doing lunch duty. We want them free and available to meet with students. And this issue of not using the time that kids have to sort of decompress and be a little social as times where we do a silent lunch, or those are disciplinary things that do happen, and I think we need to remind folks that we need the time to be a kid. So I'm happy to answer your questions. Most of you know the things that have price tags here pretty much wound up in this first draft of the budget.
Questions or comments?
I just first want to thank you so much for that time, because I think we did have a really good, rich conversation, And I'm so glad that there seemed to be real consensus about that we want our schools to not only be safe but caring places that children and adults want to be in. So I really like how this is organized. I would like to put real focus on number 3 on that first paragraph of focusing on what are the things that help people be healthy overall, and use the knowledge that exists. There's so much good knowledge about child development, about human need for exercise, for time breaks, for how long can you pay attention before we all stop being able to stay on task, and making sure that that kind of information makes it into policy, and that it's not just information people have, but how we organize our schools. And the one other thing I feel very strongly about as far as any task force is that we have to have student engagement in that. We can't have adults without students being part of that. One of the important things when students are asked is not only asking the highest achieving students to participate, but making sure we're getting a range of students. Who are the students who love going to school, and who are the children who hate going to school? We could learn a lot from all of them. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Motsinger. Other comments, board members? Yes, Ms. Clark?
Yes, I just want to, one more time about the budget. I know we're in draft mode, but the local supplement piece of our teacher's salary is something that I'd like to work on, and I've made that known for many months now. And I've heard several times today that things have made it into this draft budget, and yet I'm not for sure that the local teacher supplement dollars that we can control here locally has made it into the budget. And I know that we have looked at a couple of plans, and our goal is to increase our ranking statewide per the supplement that we pay our teachers. And so I just want to make sure that all these other things are wonderful and needed as well, but the salary of our teachers will go a long way to show them that we love them, that we care for them, that we believe that they are worth more than they're paid, and that is the chunk of money that we can work on. So I just want to say that publicly, and I think the rest of the board would support me in that. So I pray that we can find a way to do that, and maybe start it this year and grow it out, but get it in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. And so yes, the board, we ranked our priorities for a budget, and number 1 was to look at increasing teacher supplement out of 3 or 4 things that were there. So you are correct. So thank you. Additional questions around what Dr. Emery shared, or we're good? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Can I just say, getting back to the budget, I think the main thing is to be able to retain our teachers, to be able to not have our teachers go to Guilford County, to move to other places, to let them know that we appreciate them greatly and we want them to stay here. And unfortunately, salary plays a big role in that part. So let's retain our teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Calvert-Hayes. Okay, so we are wrapping that up. We will now have our Finance Committee report by Vice Chairman Robert Barr.
Well, speaking of budgets, let me see if I can wrap up our financial meeting that we had today, which was quite lengthy, but I think we got through some items. In our Finance Committee, we compared our first draft of our local budget to the board priorities. There was a recommendation made that the Finance Department develops a summary sheet with priorities listed and relevant information under them. And just to go along with, I think, what Ms. Clark said and other members of the board said, here are the priorities that we are looking at as the budget is being developed. Number 1, increasing our local teacher supplement, so that is important. Number 2, supporting and expanding identified strategies that help close the achievement gap. Then number 3, addressing the behavioral and social emotional issues. 4, and we had some discussion about this, making sure that we really look at the programs and say, are those programs working? If they're not working, then we need to eliminate those programs. And then some additional priorities, parental involvement plan, expanding teacher academy, which I think Dr. Emery just mentioned, support for effective learning, training, practice, and resources, and innovating CTE opportunities. So I believe that we are, that we've stated our priorities and we're taking steps to add dollars and cents to those priorities. And then also we discussed budget amendment and transfer number 5.
Any other comments on that? Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Barr. That concludes our discussion items this evening. We will move into our action items. First, consider approval of a resolution for National Autism Awareness Month. Do I have a motion? Vice Chairman Barr, second. Mr. Johnson, any discussion, comments? All in favor? Thank you. Consider approval of a resolution for National Volunteer Week. Do I have a motion to approve? Ms. Clark? Second, Ms. Taylor. Any discussion or comments? All in favor? Motion carries. Consider approval of a resolution for School Media Month. Do I have a motion to approve? You do. Ms. Motzinger, do I have a second? Mr. Johnson, any discussion or comments? All in favor? Motion carries. And last, consider approval of the proposed new policy on teacher contracts. Again, we'll reiterate this approval just puts it out for public comment. So we're not actually approving the policy. Ms. Calvert-Hayes, do I have a second? Ms. Clark, any comments? All in favor? Motion carries. That concludes our action items this evening. We have 2 items on our consent agenda. Approval of meeting minutes for the March 27th, 2018 meeting and approval of the general personnel report. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Ms. Parker, second. Ms. Calvert-Hayes, all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. At this time, we will open our floor to public comments. We have 2 individuals signed up to speak. We will put 3 minutes on the timer.
Thank you for joining us on your school channel, Cable 2.